Raindrops the size of marbles hammered against the studio window, mimicking the relentless rhythm of my frustration. My latest canvas stared back at me. A chaotic mess of swirling colors mirrored the turmoil inside me. For weeks, inspiration had deserted me, leaving me adrift in self-doubt. Art, or at least the dream of it, had been my lifeblood since childhood. Lately, my passion has felt like a flickering candle threatened by extinction. It could be the deadline for my solo exhibition, the pressure to produce something groundbreaking, gnawing at my creativity. Or it could be a more profound, unsettling feeling of being lost, unmoored from the person I thought I was. A sigh escaped my lips, swallowed by the rain symphony. Just then, a gentle knock on the studio door startled me. "Come in," I called out, my voice heavy with dejection. The door creaked open, revealing Ethan's warm smile. My stepfather. The man who'd stepped into the void left by my biological father when I was a kid. The one who'd filled it with unwavering support. And a love that felt as natural as breathing. "Can I join you, Ames?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. I nodded, forcing a smile. With his kind eyes and gentle demeanor, Ethan always had a knack for sensing my moods. Today was no exception. He looked at my canvas and the slump in my shoulders before his ever-present smile softened into a knowing understanding. "Artist's block, huh?" he said, pulling a chair beside me. "The worst kind," I admitted, gesturing at the mess of paint. "Everything feels forced. Like I'm going through the motions, but the spark is gone." Ethan touched my shoulder gently, his touch conveying a silent encouragement. "Sometimes we just need a different perspective," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. He spent the next hour talking about my work, not with the critical eye of a curator, but with the genuine curiosity of a fellow art enthusiast. He pointed out the raw emotions hidden under the chaotic colors, the underlying beauty struggling to break free. He spoke of his youthful dreams of becoming a sculptor. Dream sacrifice for stability. As we talked, a strange sense of connection bloomed between us, more profound than I had ever experienced with him before. It wasn't the comfortable, familial bond we shared. It was something electric, charged with an unspoken understanding. We were no longer just stepfather and daughter, but two artists sharing a secret language. A love for the beauty that transcended the canvas. The rain outside seemed to soften, the drumming a gentle lullaby against the backdrop of our conversation. We delved into personal stories, unfulfilled dreams and desires hidden beneath the surface. With each shared vulnerability, the air crackled with a thrilling and unsettling tension. Ethan leaned closer, his eyes locking with mine. They weren't the familiar fatherly eyes I was used to. They held a spark of something new, something that mirrored the sudden flutter in my chest. In that moment, suspended between the comfort of the familiar and the thrill of the forbidden, I knew I was crossing a line that could shatter everything we held dear. The stolen glances across the dinner table, the lingering touches during casual hugs. The guilt gnawed at me like a persistent rodent. Ethan and I were playing a dangerous game where the stakes were our hearts. And the potential for heartbreak was immense. My art, however, flourished under the intoxicating influence of this forbidden connection. Once muted and lifeless, the colors on my canvas now vibrated with a newfound intensity. The emotions I couldn't articulate spilled onto the canvas in a torrent of passionate strokes. Ethan, my most vocal and secret supporter, encouraged me to explore this emotional rawness. His critiques delivered and hushed whispers during stolen coffee breaks at his office were filled with genuine awe. He saw something in my work that I couldn't quite grasp myself, a reflection of a soul awakening, a story yearning to be told. But the joy of artistic expression was constantly overshadowed by the fear of discovery. Every stolen glance, every lingering touch, felt like a tightrope walk over a bottomless pit. The once comfortable familiarity we shared with my mother, Sarah, now felt strained. Her watchful eyes, usually filled with maternal warmth, held a flicker of suspicion that sent shivers down my spine. One evening, a tense silence hung in the air as we sat around the dinner table. Sarah, usually the queen of witty dinner conversations, seemed preoccupied. Her eyes darted between Ethan and me, catching us exchanging a seemingly innocent smile. Amelia, she started, her voice laced with a hint of disapproval. Your exhibition is just a few weeks away. Are you sure you're ready? Absolutely, I said, forcing a confident smile. I've been incredibly productive lately. A lie, but one coated with a thin layer of truth. It was productive, but fueled by a secret that threatened to boil over. Ethan, sensing the tension, chimed in. She's right, Sarah. Amelia's work has been truly exceptional lately. She's tapped into something raw, something powerful. His praise, while genuine, felt like a piece of kindling thrown onto a growing fire. Sarah's gaze lingered on him for a beat too long, a question forming in her eyes. Really? I haven't seen it myself. Perhaps you could give me a sneak peek sometime soon. Names. Panic welled up inside me. My studio, a haven for my forbidden emotions, was filled with works that screamed at the secret we shared. There was no way I could let Sarah see them, not yet. Mom, I stammered. Most pieces are still in progress. You wouldn't want to see them incomplete, would you? The disappointment flickered across her face before she masked it with a tight smile. Of course not, dear. Well, I'm excited to see what you've come up with. The rest of the evening was a blur of strained conversation and uneaten food. Later, as I cleared the table, Sarah joined me in the kitchen. Her usual warmth replaced by a cool distance. Okay, Mom, I managed, choking back a sob. Thanks. That night, lying in my bed, guilt gnawed at me with renewed intensity. Once thrilling, the stolen glances, the secret touches, now felt like cracks in a facade about to crumble. Ethan, the source of my inspiration, was also the source of my greatest fear. The fear of discovery, of shattering the family I loved, threatened to consume me. I felt trapped with no way out. As I drifted off to sleep, the image of my canvas, a vibrant explosion of raw emotion, mocked me. The story I was pouring onto the canvas was a truth I couldn't share with those who loved me most. Fueled by a passionate connection, the path I had embarked on felt more like a tightrope. Walk over a bottomless pit with every passing day. With no easy answer, the question that echoed in my mind was, how long could I continue this dangerous dance before the music stopped and the truth came crashing down? The days leading up to my exhibition were a blur of frantic preparations and a suffocating sense of paranoia. Sarah's watchful gaze seemed everywhere, her questions about Ethan and my sudden change in behavior becoming more frequent. While sorting through a box of old art supplies one afternoon, I stumbled upon a dusty sketchbook from my teenage years. Flipping through the pages, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. Amongst the immature sketches were several portraits of crude attempts at capturing someone I held on a pedestal, my first crush, a boy from school. Something about how his eyes crinkled when he smiled, and how his hair fell across his forehead, resonated with the emotions I was struggling to capture on my current canvas. I was overwhelmed by a sudden urge to see Ethan and share this unexpected connection. Across time. Ignoring the gnawing voice of caution, I dialed his office number, my heart hammering in my chest. With each ring, Ethan speaking, his voice warm and familiar, washed over the phone line. It's Amelia, I whispered, the weight of secrecy heavy on my tongue. Ames. What's wrong? His voice was laced with concern. Can you meet me at the studio now? There was a moment of hesitation before he responded. Sure, be there in 10. The studio, usually a haven for my creativity, felt charged with a different energy as I waited for him. His arrival, a flurry of concern etched on his face, did little to ease my frantic thoughts. What's going on, Ames? He asked, his eyes searching mine. I placed the sketchbook on the table, pointing to the portraits. These, I murmured. They remind me of my voice trailed off, the confession hanging heavy in the air. Ethan picked up the sketchbook, his brow furrowing in concentration as he examined the drawings. Then a flicker of recognition lit up his face. These are me, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. A blush crept up my neck. The boy I dreamt of as a teenager who filled my adolescent heart with butterflies was now the man I had a forbidden connection with. Silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken emotions. He reached out, his hand hovering over mine for a fleeting moment before landing gently on top. The warmth of his touch sent a jolt through me, a silent acknowledgement of our impossible situation. As if on cue, the door creaked open, revealing Sarah standing at the threshold. Her face, drained of color, was a mask of shock and betrayal. Our entwined hands, the raw emotion on both our faces, spoke volumes of what words couldn't. The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah, her body trembling slightly, finally found her voice. "How long has this been going on?" she asked. Her voice choked with tears. Shame and anger wrestled within me. Shame for the pain I was causing, anger at myself for letting this spiral out of control. But before I could respond, Ethan stepped forward, his voice firm. "Sarah," he began, "it's my fault. I should have stopped this a long time ago." The ensuing conversation was a blur of accusations, apologies, and tears. The carefully constructed tapestry of our lives, woven with love and trust, lay in tatters around us. In the aftermath of the confrontation, the house remained an echo chamber of grief. Sarah's red-rimmed eyes and voice choked with hurt barely acknowledged me. Looking every bit his age with his stooped shoulders and defeated expression, Ethan seemed to vanish into thin air. The guilt, a constant companion, threatened to suffocate me. The exhibition, once a source of excitement, now felt like a cruel reminder of the mess I'd created. The night before the opening, I sat at my kitchen table, a half-eaten bowl of cereal in front of me. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the rhythmic ticking of the clock on the wall. Suddenly, my phone blinked with a text message from Ethan. "Amelia, I know you don't want to see me," but the message read, followed by a diner address on the outskirts of town. Without a second thought, I grabbed my keys and jacket. The need to see him, to somehow mend the broken pieces, pulled me out the door. The diner was a haven of warmth and familiar smells in the cold night air. Ethan sat in a booth at the back, his face etched with worry as he looked up. "Amelia," he sighed, relief washing over his features. "I'm so glad you came." We sat in uncomfortable silence for several moments, the weight of the situation hanging heavy between us. Ethan finally broke the ice, his voice low. "I can't stay, Amelia," he said, his eyes avoiding mine. "This is destroying everyone involved, and it's unfair to you or your mother." Tears pricked my eyes, threatening to spill over. "But what about us?" I whispered, the words catching in my throat. He reached across the table, his hand gently hovering over mine. The warmth, the unspoken connection, was all too clear. "There is no us," he said, his voice filled with regret. "Not like this. This was wrong from the beginning, and it has to end." His words felt like a physical blow. The future we dared to dream of, stolen moments fueled by a forbidden spark, was ripped away instantly. "What if I began?" My voice choked with emotion. "What if we try, leave, start over somewhere new?" Ethan shook his head, a bitter smile twisting his lips. "It's tempting, Amelia, it's tempting. But it wouldn't solve anything. We'd still carry the burden of what we've done, which would only cause more pain in the long run." He squeezed my hand gently before pulling away. "Don't worry about me," he continued. "I'll be all right. Just take care of yourself, Amelia. And please find a way to mend things with your mother. She deserves that much." With those words, he stood up, leaving a gaping hole where his warmth had been. I watched him leave the diner, his silhouette disappearing into the cold night air. Once filled with the promise of success and love, the future stretched before me, uncertain and lonely. The following day, I packed a small bag and left a note on the kitchen table for Sarah. It wasn't an apology, not yet. It was a simple goodbye, a promise to myself to find a way forward, a path toward healing and forgiveness. As I drove away from the town that held my memories, both happy and devastating, tears streamed down my face. The exhibition, the culmination of months of work, meant nothing anymore. All that remained was the shattered remnants of a life I could no longer recognize. And the hope, fragile and uncertain, that somewhere down the road redemption might be found. Do you think someday my mom will be able to forgive me? Like and subscribe for more videos like these.